We're tracking all the major stories. Crime stories: insurgency in the northeast by Boko Haram. 4 suicide bombers have attacked Madagali town in Adamawa state, northeast of Nigeria. 2 civilians were said to have been killed as a result of the multiple explosions that rocked the area. 10 others who sustained serious injuries have been moved to the general hospital in Michika. The suicide bombers tried to enter a motor park in Madagali but detonated the bombs immediately. They were cited by the military officials. Data feeds still coming through in one place simultaneously on all our social media platforms. We'll focus on the biggest stories yet. Channelstv.com and youtube.com/channel12. You can follow us right now on m.channelstv.com. If you're on the go, we've got all our platforms and social media covered. Be part of the show. Tweet at Gimba Umar CTV and use the hashtag State of the Nation to air your thoughts on the subject. Troops of Operation Lafia Dole have continued their mop-up operations around the Sambisa forest area and the surrounding environs in Borno State. Earlier, 4 suspected fleeing members of the sect were arrested by troops of the 27th Task Force Brigade stationed in Bara during one of their patrols to Madaki village in Bu local government area of the state. Well, according to the army, the suspects were intercepted at the outskirts of the town alongside 100 concealed motorcycles, which were also recovered from them. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has met with security chiefs. The presidential villa in Abuja was the venue. The meeting focused on the prevailing security concerns in southern Kaduna State, the Niger Delta and other parts of the country. We'll be taking a look at this as well. The Minister of Defense, in the meantime, Muhammadu Dan Ali, has revealed that troops have been moved to southern Kaduna State while negotiations are ongoing to end the killings in the area. Can the security chiefs get the many security concerns under control? That's the biggest question yet. It's prime time in Lagos, and this is State of the Nation. This is State of the Nation. Data fields are still coming through live on our social media platforms. Just tweet at Gimba Umar CTV and use the hashtag State of the Nation to air your thoughts on the subject. We're going to begin with the falling rate of the Naira. It's the biggest story we're tracking at this time against the dollar, which has recorded its lowest ebb of all times, hitting an almost 500 Naira exchange rate to the dollar in an economy deep in recession. With falling oil prices, unfortunately, have made the situation even more dire for the people. Can we survive this, as many people are even unable to survive 3 square meals a day? Charles Iori is an economist who joins me further to look at this situation. Many thanks indeed for coming on State of the Nation at this time. It's still within the first 2 weeks into the new year, and the Naira has been seen nosediving, exchanging for as much as 500 Naira in the parallel market today. Call it a black market if you will. What is responsible for this continuous nosedive of the Naira against major currencies?
Well, can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you. Please go ahead. I can hear you.
You can hear me, all right. Like I told you, like I said last time I was in the program, how well you manage your local currency will determine how it exchanges on the outside. Since 1986, when we decided to deregulate our currency, we have been using false managed positions. We have been doing false strike prices, and the chickens have only now come home to roost. If you want to correct the situation, like I said the last time, you do what is called import substitution in the first instance. Lagos State has started. What you used to import, you now produce locally. There are 3 major items that take off the foreign exchange. Petroleum products, which is petroleum products, sugar, and rice. If you do those 3 items, the amount you spend on importing those items will be substantially reduced. That's the first one. Secondly, you must manage your positions effectively. When you open an LC, it must be properly negotiated so that not too many false pardons are taking place on the outside. As it is right now, more than 50% of the money that is spent to buy things on the outside by foreign exchange has no value in the system.
So how is this new Naira against the dollar rate that we're looking at, 500 Naira to a dollar, how is this going to affect trade in dollar-dependent sectors in the short to medium term?
Like I just told you, when you decided to deregulate in 1986, we had said it then, you are destroying the real sector because those who can manufacture can pay for imports to come in. It's taking 30 years for this to happen. You have to reverse those things. There's no quick fix. There's no quick fix to it. I've told you, as it is right now, Lagos State is doing a good job with, is it Benny Kebbi State, producing rice. You need to do more of those items so that your import bill is reduced. It's called import substitution. And then you have to be more structured in the way you manage your LCs. The LCs are not negotiated. They give you whatever figure they are. The bankers sit in their offices. They don't care whether the goods come in or not. You can't afford to do that anymore. And then again, as it is right now, most of the imports that comes into Nigeria goes to the West African sub-region. It is not paid for by CFA or any currency. You must work at that. Those are the key issues. If you do that fairly consistently and manage your budget well, so that you don't spend 60% of your money to run government, it's not a difficult thing to sort out. Thank you.
Let's talk more about the exchange rate and vis-a-vis the peg set by the government for the 2017 budget. But the dollar keeps appreciating against the Naira to a point where it threatens the budget 2017. How do you see this working out for Nigeria's 2017 budget?
Well, like I said previously, it's going to make nonsense of the budget itself. But what I'm saying is that it's not as bad as it looks. The first thing you need to do basically is to do the ratios right. You can't, like I said last time, you can't print 1,000 Naira notes for the exchange that will take place in one day, and then you spend 500 of it to pay salaries. You got to correct those ratios immediately. You can't afford to do what you're doing right now. And then once you engage in this import substitution, you find jobs locally and the economy can rebound. But it's not something you do. It's not a quick fix. You've got to be systematic about it. Like I told you, we are still carrying the import burden of the West African sub-region. That is to be looked at.
Now,
thank you.
This is the picture that we have right now in the country. The government insists that the official rate, exchange rate of the Naira to the dollar is 305 Naira to a dollar. And there are calls in some quarters to illegalize the parallel market. Do you agree to this proposal?
Well, they could try. It is difficult to do that because you have it happens everywhere. If it's not going to happen on the road, it will happen elsewhere. The key thing, like I said, basically, it's not something you can do by fiat. You must go back to the drawing board. The first thing to do is what value do you get for your Naira locally. Ensure that you have line items in your budget that can be pursued and measured. And then once you have discipline below and say, look, like I'll ask you a question. Do you know that the son of a driver can go to a medical school? In the same way that the son of a pump check can go to medical school. What they do in those houses is that they have ratios. They determine what they need to do, what's priority for them. You need to do that as a nation also. You can't say because you haven't got resources, that you need to live in the lifestyle you had a long time ago. You must cut all those things down immediately. It's a question of, it's like a reset button. The ratios must be right. The ratios just aren't right. 60% for running government is totally through the roof.
It's difficult for many people to understand where you're coming from, saying that we have to revert to pre-election time when the Naira was a little more stable and go back to the drawing board and begin to look inward and produce locally. Is that the only channel that can free Nigeria of this burden?
Well, like I said, substantially, the government is borrowing about 30 billion to finance its problem. It's for construction work. But I still think there's still enough absorptive capacity for about 70 billion to come in, $100 billion. But that won't happen if you don't have a clear linkages in place. I just told you the three main things taking the money from the economy are sugar, petroleum produce, and rice. If you begin to do what's called import substitution, instead of buying your rice, you produce it locally. Instead of buying petroleum produce, you produce it locally. Instead of buying the sugar, you produce it locally. you'll be amazed at what can happen immediately. And these things have got to be properly documented. I still tell you that the cost of running government is still too high. 60% for running government is not acceptable. Those are the issues. I mean, there are hard choices. There's no magic about this thing. It's been happening since 1986, and I think we warned the government then a long time ago. But everything, all the prices you see as foreign exchange rates are called false strike prices. It's just that the margin and the width is so wide right now. Most of them are not true.
Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied with the government's agriculture program in a bid to diversify the economy? Is it on the right track?
Well, I told you, what I see Lagos State doing, the Kebbi State is appropriate. We have seen this for a long while. It's not just the Lagos State government that can do it. Local governments can also train themselves and put produce together. And like I said the last time I spoke to you, if the yam that comes from Benue State is bought from the farmer at 50 Naira, is sold at 200 Naira in one round in Lagos, and then the man goes back to Benue State and buys at 40 Naira and expects to make the same 200 Naira, they will tell you police is stopping them, customs is stopping them, but at the end of the day, you're going to kill all that farmer and there will be no produce. So when you deal systematically with foreign exchange, you also now deal with poor logistics. So deal with your logistics, deal with your foreign exchange. There's a whole matrix of things you need to correct to make sure these things change. But they are not as difficult as they are if you do them appropriately and ensure that the guys, people who understand markets, do these things.
We had some program back in the 80s, Operation Feed the Nation, and now we also had a structural adjustment program at some point during that time in our history as a nation. Today, yes. How would you analyze what we had then and what we're having now?
Well, what we had then was just the beginning, and I think I published a newsletter then talking about the exchange rate mechanisms, and I think most people were telling me that if the market can take it, allow the exchange rate to continue. We've done that for 30 years of living falsely. But I still think that in terms of production, we produce a lot more than people give credit for. More than 60% of the fruits you produce are not taken, go to waste. The yams that you produce, about 30% rots away and stuff like that. So what you need to do basically is to ensure that all that you're doing is that the food doesn't all go to waste. The argument is that you need to can them and put them into can them. What do you want to use in factories to can them? But I always ask people, in how many shops and green grocery stores you go to around the world, do you see canned corn and canned tomatoes and stuff? All it is a careful logistic system. So most of what you produce is eaten at the right time, and then what is left can be canned. You can't say because of canning, that's why you're wasting 60% of your produce and 30% of your tomatoes. There's still production, just poor logistics.
In bringing this discussion to a close, what do you forecast from now, say, till the middle of the year, sometimes in June? Do you foresee that the Naira will begin to stabilize more, or would you subscribe to that 305 as the official rate and scrap off the parallel market?
It is difficult to scrap off the parallel market, so forget that one as an option. But like I said, the hard choices have got to be made. You do make these choices in 1986. If you don't make them in 2017, you're going to survive the same thing. Go back to the drawing board, like I said. Begin a structured program of import substitution, which Lagos State has started. What states can do, local governments can do, and then create a program of self-sufficiency. And then grow the food so that very little goes to waste. And until you do, it's a great program. It is what the world does, basically. If you don't have a great program to ensure that most of what you produce doesn't go to waste, then you're going to have to pay for it and import it. That's the challenge we have right now.
Also, the reality that we have that is facing a lot of people, a lot of homes, as I said in my introduction, they're unable to afford 3 square meals a day. How will this new rates of the Naira against the dollar affect commodity prices in the market? Let's talk more about commodity prices. Apart from rice, you also have beans, you have got the local staple food, gari, and so on.
Yes.
How will that impact on the markets today?
Well, like I keep telling you, I keep saying that there is enough primary produce production in Nigeria. The logistic arrangements are very weak. That is the problem. And then the government needs to operate as one government. In other words, if industry needs to support agriculture needs to support education, we should all work together rather than working in silos. And until you do that, you not really know the real effect of what's happening in the economy. Right now, people are trying to be superstars, which is not necessary, and they are not supporting each other. They must support each other from the bottom up. That's what we need to do to ensure we can be on the path of recovery.
Charles Ori, an economist, many thanks indeed for taking your time to explain some of those challenges we're facing on the Naira against the dollar fall. And when we return, we'll take a look at the developing security story in the north of the country. Stay with us.